can be a very powerful emotion. It can manipulate people into doing things that they wouldn't necessarily otherwise do, or fuel some very violent or nasty atrocities. For certain goddesses who aren't yet in Smite but will be, anger is very dangerous in their hands. Be that particularly for women, or just anyone who doesn't have resistance against volcanoes. Yes, today we're pitting Pele, wine's volcanic deity, against Hera, queen of Olympus. Whenever the Greek gods are mentioned to have transformed into animal or creature, they seem to also gain the attributes or abilities of said creature or animal. For instance, when Zeus would transform into a swan or bird, he could fly. The less you know about why he did this, the better. Hera once transformed into an Amazon, and while she might not have necessarily had the training to back it up, she probably definitely had the toughness of your typical Amazon. After all, it was Hera's milk that gave Hercules the strength that he used for the rest of his life, so she probably also has the strength of the gods. She also commanded great authority and power. Hera had the Titans destroy an infant in one myth, that being Bacchus, but that's power, the ability to command others to do pretty much whatever you want them to do, even if it's to do something as considerably vile as murdering an infant or young child, baby. Yeah. Don't mess with Hera. She also transformed an unfortunate Callisto, a lover of Zeus, into a bear after Zeus fell in love with her. And also, she made sure that many lovers of Zeus suffered, whether they were conscious of who they were dating or not. She was also a bit of an opportunist, and maintained the Trojan War by keeping Zeus occupied, shall we say. Either making sure that he was uncommitted to any side, or influencing him to switch sides, or at least trying to get him to switch sides. Now, whilst she never necessarily felt a battlefield injury, she did feel her fair share of pain. Hephaestus or Vulcan decided to lock her away in an iron chair as punishment for a certain betrayal. Now, eventually Hephaestus does free her, but she does lose a bit of her authority in that singular moment. There was also that time that she tried to murder Heracles at sea. Zeus didn't like that one bit, and as punishment, he shackled her by forcing her to wear these heavy weights, and may have also tortured her a little bit with some lightning bolts. But she survived, and it wasn't like there was any permanent damage to her, so she's actually more resilient than you might think. This is a goddess we're talking about, after all. But the most dangerous thing that she's proven herself to be capable of in her anger, jealousy, or rage was the corruption of Hercules. Not only did this corruption or overwhelming rage cause Hercules to murder his own family, i.e. Megara and their children, but also one of his best friends as well. Now, it should be noted that Hercules was a special case. He wasn't exactly the brightest tool in the box, and of course, he tended to let his emotions get the better of him, so he was probably an easy target for Hera to manipulate. But even so, it was possible, and Heracles was a demigod, so there's that. I mention Heracles' demigod status because most of these atrocities, or most of the things that Hera did to people that were vile or just mean, were generally done to human beings, not necessarily gods or goddesses. Heracles, of course, would be a special case because of his demigod status. Moving on to Pele, she resides over many things, but volcanoes represents what she stands for quite nicely. You see, she's also someone that can let her rage get the better of her, doing things that would be quite destructive, especially because she resides over volcanoes, and as we all know, volcanoes are very destructive and powerful things. Losing your temper whilst residing over these things probably isn't the best thing to be around for. But just to be all-inclusive here, she also resides over fire, lightning, wind, and dance. That said, Pele was by no means invincible, and her older sister, Namakoa-Kahai, goddess of the sea, married Ukelenwaiku. She showed him her forms and magics, but ultimately she was taken by the beautiful Pele. In her anger, the sea goddess chased Pele with powerful waves from the sea, and eventually she either kills Pele in some myths, but in others, Pele actually manages to survive and flees towards a particular mountain, Mauna Kea, away from the water's grasp. If she dies, She is then reborn as a goddess, but from her new position, she may go into battle against her sister. So, thanks to this impulsive display, we can see that Pele kind of does whatever she wants, and also allows her emotions to control her, get the better of her, but dictate her actions freely. She lives as she wants to live. Hera sensed that her husband was unusually distracted. She knew what this meant. Few things would ever usually distract Zeus in this way, and this would not do. After some investigation, she knew that it was time again. He didn't usually mingle with goddesses, she thought, and certainly not ones that were so uncivil. Arriving at Mauna Kea, she stomps against its rocky surface, demanding the presence of a certain volcanic goddess, who appeared perturbed by the disturbance. She summoned a powerful gust of wind, which drove back Hera, but only briefly. Hera took the form of a bull and charged towards Pele, who avoided the danger and threw fireballs at the queen, forcing her back into her usual godly form. Now frustrated, Hera took the form of an Amazon, donning a shield, helmet, and a spear, before slamming into Pele, who was now forced onto her back against the rocky plain of Mauna Kea. Yet she avoided incoming deadly blows, and when the spear was trapped inside of her home, the Olympian tackled her, exchanging rapid blows. She would withstand this insult no longer. Mauna Kea erupted. A single peacock flew away safely, being unharmed from the explosive volcano, almost satisfied with the mayhem that had been created here today. She was almost too pleased and ignored a gust of wind which soon introduced her to the sea. Yet the peacock did not drown. Rather, it stayed afloat, but it was unsatisfied all the same. This goddess not only decided to betray her sister and aid her husband in being unfaithful, but she would then dare move towards her husband, Zeus, the king of Olympus. This was unforgivable. This would not be tolerated, and soon the waves of the sea found themselves approaching Mauna Kea violently, with a fury that it had never known before. The waves climbed the volcano, and eventually it was consumed. This fight really wasn't fair, and not because Hera is necessarily far too powerful for Pele, but rather, Hera really doesn't fight her own battles at all. When you look throughout Greek mythology, Hera goes up against mortal women and punishes them, but there's a clear power difference between the two. During the Trojan War, she doesn't actively fight as some of the gods with vested interest in the outcome of the battles actually do. Instead, she manipulates the king of the gods into, at the very least, taking no action, no sides. Sometimes her machinations blow up in her face, but if her surviving the belly of Cronus or Chiron having to suffer that poison arrow coursing through his veins is any indication, she wouldn't actually die from this fight anyway. It's just, by herself, with her own talents and abilities, she wouldn't necessarily be able to harm Pele. She'd have to use someone else to do it. And the sea goddess despises Pele. Hera probably wouldn't have to kick up her sister's rage levels to even get her to assault Pele. But in the end, Hera was going to win this fight without ultimately using her own two hands to end it herself. So in that sense, it really wasn't a fair fight. And the winner is Hera. And it's not like Hera didn't know what a volcano was. Have you ever heard of Pompeii, the actual historical event that actually happened? Yeah, the Greeks knew, or the Romans knew, what exactly a volcano was. Hera was probably well aware of the dangers that she was approaching. It's not like the volcano erupting would suddenly stop her completely. She'd be confused as to what was about to happen. That said, this fight could also turn into a stalemate otherwise very easily, because it's not like Pele couldn't just come back. Hera wins this fight. But that was the versus video. I hope that you did enjoy, and if you did, go ahead and leave a like, and of course, subscribe to the channel. But tell me, do you think I'm wrong? Do you think Pele would just be able to immediately destroy Hera? No questions asked. Her immunity to death wouldn't mean much because she'd be trapped under lava, and Pele would just immediately erupt, or just immediately be able to trap her in some way and defeat her like that, immobilizing her. Or some other method of victory. Pele would just win on top. Pele would just come out on top regardless. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. But until the next video, have a very good day. I have been Pride, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.